Hey, everybody, this is the Hurricane Ian Show, where we provide you guys with resources to help recover from the storm. So, I'm TJ Ware. I'm a board advisor for the American Policyholder Association. I'm also a public adjuster. And this is Josh Gless of iRoofing.
What's going on, guys?
And
Kyle Maring with Premier Claims.
sorry, guys. There we go. And Kyle Maring of Premier Claims. So, we want to give you guys some information and talk about some of the things that are going on. First of all, Josh, so you live on the east coast of Florida, right? South Florida, over Fort Lauderdale, and you've been driving all over the state, helping pull together some of the resources to help people recover. First of all, I want to ask you, what drives you to go help those people?
Well, it's something that I've always been passionate about. I mean, just helping people in general, and when I first heard that this was going on, I mean, it kind of hits a little bit close from home is for me as well, because when Hurricane Irma came through, I didn't necessarily lose my house and everything I had to the hurricane. I lost it to a fire. So, me and my girls, we rolled out with 2 boxes of stuff, and I mean, these guys, you guys. Want you guys to realize, I mean, what I went through. I mean, they're going through even worse because the fact that their whole community is in disaster, and so that's why really drives me as well, as far as trying to reach out and help, because moms out there that can't find formula, they can't find diapers, anything else like that. So
yeah, we talked to some people. We've been here at the American Legion, where you've been hanging out too, and helping some of the people from the community, working with a lot of veterans. We've run into a couple of situations, and I want you guys to pay attention, because if you can help us with these resources, it would be greatly appreciated. Number one, there's no power and there's no ice. There hasn't been any ice. Well, a lot of diabetics, they need to keep their insulin cool. They need to keep their insulin cool, and so that's important. We've been asking for small coolers and ice. Power is starting to come back on around here, so hopefully that won't be a problem for much longer. And also, there was great need for the people here.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's terrible to see them going through this.
Yeah, and I mean, you guys got to think about just basic necessities. I mean, for people with kids, for example, I mean, it's diapers, baby food, wipes. I mean, how many times do you change a kid's diaper throughout the day?
Right.
Not only that, but I mean, even pets that are affected. I mean, a lot of these pets, affect these wounded warriors and everything else, and so. And it's their lifeline. So it's pet food, and just non-tangible food items, such as, I've been handing out crackers and, little soups and stuff that they can actually put together, and even apples, because a lot of these people are diabetic and they need those fruits and everything else as well. And so it's just a matter of these little basic things and these necessities that actually means the world to them, because they've lost so much. And it's and to be honest, I mean, it's to this day, I mean, I still have issues sometimes where I'm I still can't believe it happened. It's just happened to these guys, and they just they forget all about what's actually going on, and it just really hasn't quite sunk in for some of them, I believe. It's just when I'm out there and I'm meeting, I mean, this lady was we're just down this little community, and she's surrounded by 3 foot of water, 2-3 foot of water, and she herself, and she hasn't left her house. She has 3 dogs, and I was the first person that was able to come up to her and stuff, and it's just a lot of these people, they're still experiencing all these issues, and they're not really, it's not soaking in quite yet, because it's still fresh in their minds.
We've even seen that some of the pets haven't had access to pet food. They're out of their normal routine. They're in this strange situation, and we've had multiple instances where we've learned of pets or animals in the community getting aggressive in the last few days, because even they're disrupted. And those are things that I never would have thought about before experiencing that in this type of environment.
Right. I mean, you got to remember, I mean, these guys, I mean, they were affected by the flood, right? So what happens when you have the flood? I mean, you have, a lot of these guys, the water came up to, countertop and even higher sometimes. And so, and where do you keep the food? Usually down towards the bottom, everything else. And so it gets into the food. So if it's not the wet food or anything else like that, if you're talking the dry food, then what happens is it's going to get wet, and then they're not going to be able to eat it, and so then it's well, how am I going to feed the dog type thing? So, it makes sense, because, these pets, everybody's hungry out there, that has really been affected to it.
Yeah, it's so disruptive in so many ways. So I was down in Naples today looking at a house for a gentleman, and the house had not really been opened since it had flooded. And this house had only had about maybe a foot of water in it. And it's been closed up. And when I opened it, even today, it hasn't been very many days, I couldn't breathe.
Right.
I couldn't breathe inside there.
Yeah, the whiff is strong.
It's so important. Kyle, how important is it for people to take steps to protect their property from further damage after the storm?
It's probably the number one thing, right? So we got to get in, mitigate possible. If you're talking big commercial or even residential, shrinking loose properties, stabilizing inside. So that's really what I've been spending most of my time the last week, is making sure that we're getting everything out.
So does the property owner have to do that, or can they just wait around and see how their insurance treats them and then decide if they want to protect their property then?
Right. So the burden is on the insured to do that. So what we've been doing pretty much to sunrise to sundown is reviewing the policies, making sure that the mitigation companies can go in, so the insureds are not having to come out of pocket. That is what I've been focused on pretty much all day long.
Another question that I have, a lot of people have been talking and asking about this today, is what happens if the property was damaged by floodwaters, by storm surge, but also damaged by wind and it has a hole in the roof?
Well, we got to point it back to the proper peril, right, that caused the damage. So that's where things get tricky. That's
flood coverage and they have hurricane coverage, those damages?
correct. Yep. And with the amount of floodwaters, I mean, we had 18-foot high down in some parts of Fort Myers. That's going to cause issues with a lot of the claims. So, being able to separate the wind damage and the water intrusion from the floodwaters.
Is there a possibility that one insurance company will try to blame the damage on the other and vice versa?
I see it a lot. Yep. So that's a concern that I definitely have in some areas that have been affected here. So
Okay.
We've been dealing primarily with a lot of the wind stuff so far. We've signed some flood. Not anything that I haven't signed anything above like 6 foot of water yet. So,
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, we heard that the floodwaters did rise above the roofs of some of the homes because, unfortunately, especially in Lee County, they're discovering a lot of people that perished in the storm. I think that the death toll will continue to increase some based on what I'm hearing out there.
Absolutely.
But I want everybody who's not in the state of Florida, all you guys that are out there, because we have a lot of viewers in Louisiana and Texas, and parts of the country, in the Midwest. If you have any ability, please donate resources or money to support the recovery down here in Florida. There is going to be some government money available, but honestly, when I respond to a lot of storms, and you know how many times I've seen FEMA in the worst parts of the disaster areas? Almost none. Now, I don't know what that means exactly, but I can tell you that private organizations are doing a lot of the outreach, just like Josh. A lot of individuals and small companies also. A lot of the companies that come down here to work have also been bringing aid, supplies, food, and a lot of the people that I know that are manning food centers and feeding centers and hurricane recovery centers down here are involved in the restoration industry, and they like to go in and help and serve. And then support the people and support the contractors that are there.
Yeah, and one thing you got to think about as well is, I mean, a lot of these people that are affected, I mean, when they're out there, there's no gas, there's no food, there's no water, right? So how are they actually supposed to get to these centers to where they can actually get the help that they actually need, right? And so it's such a huge thing. And I mean, the people that I've met, they're like, man, you're like the first people that we've even seen. And so, that outreach and just kind of like showcasing to those other people that are outside, that there's someone else there that we can, reach out to, and, that they have someone. Right. And I do have one question, though, like as far as like when you guys are going through these, like I know besides generators, but what if you don't have a generator? How are you going to dry out like a place that's been completely flooded? Because I know that some people are actually dealing with that. And, the smell, for example, I mean, that's a huge thing, is there's not enough ventilation, and that's why it's happening.
So usually the companies that come in, the mitigation companies and the contractors that help, like their job is to come in as quickly as possible, bring all of the equipment needed to get that house dried out so that it inhibits the microbial growth that may come
Right.
with that stagnated situation.
Right, but what about like even after, for example? I mean, it's just like when you dry everything out and then you shut the doors, right? Then it's just a matter of like that smell and stuff kind of like still kind of like remains, you know?
So once the power is back on, HVAC actually is very effective in keeping the interior of a home dehumidified.
Right.
When they first developed HVAC, they were trying to build a dehumidifier, so it does have that good effect. But until the power grid is back on, it's just going to be a constant process of drying out.
Right. That's that's just one of the questions that I had. Just because like I lived in Brazil for a while, and when it rains, sometimes it get wet inside, and there's they have the power, but they don't have AC there, right?
See.
So it's like the smell. Sometimes you're just like, oh my god, like this has got to like stop. So it's just a matter of like trying to get like a fan or something that's constantly moving that air.
Right.
So. And I know that a lot of people like close their windows there, so I was just kind of curious as far as, until that power actually does come back on, like what's going to be like that process. So
They've got to do everything that they can to try to get the house dried out as soon as possible. Because in some of these areas, if they wait for the power to come back on, irreparable damage is going to be done from the humidity sitting in that house. And I learned that today when I walked into that house in Naples.
Yeah, no, it's crazy.
Hey, thanks both of you. You're both friends of mine, and you're both well-known professionals in your own industries. We know each other, obviously, because we're connected to a lot of people. And I appreciate both of you guys and what you're doing for Florida.
No, I appreciate that.
Same to you.
Yeah, and just so you guys know, I've been driving back and forth to Fort Lauderdale as well. So some of our viewers that are in the Fort Lauderdale, Miami, West Palm Beach, we got a lot of different people that are trying to gather those different collections, and we have different collection sites. We've even opened up our offices as well, just to kind of make it a little bit easier for these people as well, is because it's just a matter of like I don't almost feel like there's not enough coverage on just how complete devastation these people are actually going through,
or how big the area is. I think that's one of the things is
for sure.
You guys see these resources coming into the disaster area, but you don't realize that the disaster area is so vast that most of these communities still almost have no resources.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, and as far as you talking about like the death toll and stuff like that, I mean, you got to remember that for the news for so long, it was saying that, it's going to hit with like a 1, right? So living in Florida, if I hear 1, a 2, a 3, I'm just kind of like, not worried about it, right? And It changed like within like 1 or 2 days, and sometimes these people weren't even like paying attention, and
very quickly. And a lot of the people here, they don't drive.
Correct.
There are a lot of older people. Some of them are from places like New York City, where they just have never really used an automobile, and they don't have to in the community they live in here. So the ability for people to evacuate was very limited.
Correct. Yeah, and I mean that's one of the reasons. Like, someone must have got a hold of like one of the posts that I did that I was here, and they're like, hey, can you go check on my mom and stuff, or like my dad or my sister or my brother, and it's just like. I met with one couple today, and it just like brought them both to tears because I called on FaceTime because I haven't had service, and I happen to have service, and it's just, it's amazing feeling. But then, you also got to remember, you got to put yourself in their shoes almost, as far as when, like, when's the last person that you talked to, or like when's the last time you talked to your son or your best friend? It's just like that worry and that stress that these people are feeling. So,
well, we're going to be here to help these people rebuild. You live close by.
Correct.
So you're going to be here for the long haul. And we look forward to continuing to provide everyone with important information to help you recover from this storm.
Absolutely.